Lovely. Thanks very much. Hopefully you can all hear me. Perhaps you could wave to me if you are unable to hear. So lovely to see so many of you here. My name is Jay. I am the Housing Collections Manager at A La Ronde, which means I've got a fantastic job, beautiful office, and I look after the house and the collections pretty much, which is a fantastic opportunity. I've been there for about 7 years now. There's a small team of us who look after the place. We have a huge number of volunteers, some of who I can see here today, who help us to show off the place to visitors. So what I'm going to talk to you about today, sorry about behind the curtain, is really about what we've been up to the past few years. I'm hoping that most of you will know A La Ronde and that all of you would have been. If not, I'm hoping that I'll give you a good advertisement for coming and visiting, because it is only just up on the hill there, so it's lovely and convenient for you. So, what I would like to do first really is to talk about what A La Ronde is all about, how it came to be. Sorry, I'm a new glasses wearer, so I'm having to read glasses and then look at you without glasses, so I get the hang of it. So, we had really important people here who were the creators of A La Ronde. These two ladies here, top left, these are the only images we have of Mary and Jane Parmenter. Mary was the younger, and she is the one who is in colour. Jane is the elder, and she is just showing in silhouette. What the small estate of A La Ronde is really about the religious beliefs and the artistic skills of Jane and Mary. It didn't exist at all before they built it, and was completely their creation. So the Parmenters were a Devon family, and they had really extensive business interests. Jane, the elder of the two ladies, was born in Portugal in 1750. So we say that she was a great European, and that but she was very European-minded. But some may also just. So Jane was one of the Parmenter family whose father owned a wine export company over in Lisbon, and perhaps a glass factory as well, but we haven't got a huge amount of evidence for that. She was fortunately very wealthy because of that, and the independent wealth gave the cousins this real unusual freedom for women at the time. So Jane herself was the second cousin of Mary. So Mary, I'm going to get these very confused now. I'm so sorry. Mary, the younger of the two cousins, was only 4 years old when her parents died, and was therefore the ward of Jane. So they had a relationship which was sort of aunt and niece, or mother and daughter, but Jane had been looking after Mary for pretty much her whole life. When Mary was about 17 or 18, which is just after this little portrait was created, they decided to go on the grand tour of Europe. Now, this is quite a interesting thing for women at the time to have gone on, because obviously, as you probably well know, it was a man's thing, really. If it was for boys to go when they got to their late teens, early 20s, go and explore Europe, get up to all kinds of hijinks. And our two ladies went on a grand tour in the very late 1780s. They were said to be away for about 10 years, not consistently, as they came back every so often. But they did travel pretty much on their own. There were four ladies who went on this grand tour, and they came back with these fantastic ideas as to what to do when they returned and what to create. And they created A La Ronde as a result. So the engraving here at the bottom shows the house in 1895, so 100 years after it was built. And this is fairly similar to how it looked when it was built. As far as we know, we don't have a huge number of, a huge amount of evidence. But this is one of the earliest engravings we've got. So Jane died in 1811 and Mary in 1849. And they were buried in their estate in the chapel. As you all know, Point of View was built by privateers, and that's where their remains are interred, which is really rather lovely. And it's a lovely little place. If you haven't been to Point of View, a lovely place to visit. Beautiful view, of course, which is very important. So Mary, when she died, she left a will which aimed to ensure the preservation of the house and the contents, and to allow only unmarried female relations to inherit, which is a very interesting clause, but one that was almost completely adhered to. We have, however, a gentleman called Oswald Reichel, who was the grandson of Jane Parminter's cousin, so quite a convoluted kind of family tree. And he was the only man only to have ever owned A La Ronde. It wasn't within the terms of Mary's will or family tradition, but it's because he was a gentleman of the Victorian age. He purchased the house in 1880 in a sort of slightly odd legal kind of way from his sister Stella, who was one of the people who it had been passed down to. He really wanted to improve the house. He didn't knock it down. He did it very carefully. We've always painted poor old Oswald as a bit of a villain, as the only man who has come in and spoiled this female idyll. But actually, he was very careful in his modernisation of the property, and made it actually a grand and practical house to live in Victoria, with lots and lots of lovely new Victorian technology, such as bells to call your servants, eating, which can be quite important, pumped water, and things like a dumb waiter to take your food up and down. So he wasn't completely the villain. These photographs that I'm just showing here are taken from some of our interpretation we got in the property. So after Oswald Reichel died, and then throughout the 20th century, A La Ronde was owned by female generations again. We have Margaret and Stella Tudor, who were in fact nieces of Oswald Reichel, but they had to buy the house on the open market. But Margaret loved it so much that she thought that was worth it. So she put a huge amount of her savings into buying her beautiful house. They really needed to find ways to fundraise and keep the house open and protect it. It first opened to the public in 1935, so really quite a long time ago. We have Margaret and Stella, who are these two at the bottom. And after they died, a lovely lady called Ursula Tudor-Perkins took over from Stella. She was a relation. And so she still had these limited resources and really had to try and scrimp and save to find some wonderful ideas as to how to get money to look after this place. And eventually, in 1991, Ursula decided it's just too much, and put the house on the open market. And fortunately, the National Trust bought it after quite a large amount of fundraising that had to go on in order to purchase it from the nation. So we have owned the property for 20, 30 years. No, hang on. I'm so sorry. 30 and a bit years. And so it's now under the protection of the National Trust. Okay. So you will have maybe come across the what we call is the A La Ronde project. So over the past, say, 3 or 4 years, we had a project up at the house to improve and conserve the property and represent it, and to also increase community links with the property, because we're obviously part of the excellent community, but it did feel at times as if we're sort of that house up on the hill, but actually really want to be connected with the town, because it is part of the town. Also, really important moment is to make sure that as many people as possible can see it, so actually get into the property and experience it, not just with your eyes, in different ways. So, what I want to talk to you about really is practical conservation work, which I think is the most interesting. It's been a really big part of the property and the work that we have been doing over the past 3 or 4 years. Obviously, it's important to remember with conservation work that you shouldn't really see very much difference. So conservation is different to restoration. We talk about conservation as stopping the deterioration of what is going on. So everything deteriorates over time. It's just one of those things. But we in the National Trust don't look to restore things to how we think they should be or how we think they might have been. If we have really good evidence of something that's how it was, if we have bits that we could stick back on again, then that's conservation. So we talk about conservation work and restoration. So I wanted to show you, because I'm going to be talking about different rooms and things, so I just wanted to show you a floor plan so you understood what it was all about. The house is a hexadecagon, which means it's got 16 sides. This is the main ground floor plan. There is a lumpy central area called the octagon, which surprisingly enough is octagon shaped. And the main showrooms radiate from that. So it's a good idea to keep that plan in mind. So the next slide is really about how we went on with, how we started with our conservation work. The roof, as you may know, was letting water in. So the first thing to get right before we could spend a lot of money on conservation work on beautiful shell gallery is to stop the water getting in. So it took quite a long time. I'm sure many of you would have seen this fantastic scaffold, 16-sided scaffold. It was said by the Mail on the Mail online as being the world's most difficult scaffold or something, which made us laugh rather. So the roofing materials were relayed. The chimneys were taken down, and a lead dip tray was sort of put in to stop the water coming down vertically. It all took a very long time to organise and sort out where the water is coming from and how it could be stopped. So we have, in fact, as we've been monitoring the water inside the building for the last 3 years, there's been no sign of any. So I think we can give that a big tick. There's actually no water coming in. But that's pretty much phase one, make the place watertight. We have a rare and unique feather frieze in the drawing room, which is one of our historic spaces. This was conserved and cleaned. So we had some specialist feather conservators, which is fantastic. I don't know such a thing. And they came and cleaned and conserved the frieze. So it's really about making sure that nothing is eating it, that everything is adhered into place, and that any dirt build-up is not deteriorating the feathers underneath. So there's not a huge amount of difference, but you can tell that they have to be worked on, and we're very pleased with the result. The feathers in the frieze are recognisable. Obviously, you see some dotty ones, which are guinea fowl. Got some peacocks, there's some jade feathers and a green with stuff. We think that most of them have been brought from very locally, where the Parmenters probably had fowl in their gardens to eat and for eggs. And so they would have had these as the byproduct. And I've always been interested in how the Parmenters came up with this idea. It's not something that has been seen anywhere else. There's no other evidence of one of these feather freezes. It'd be nice to think that they woke up in the morning and thought, right, what I'm going to do today is a bit crafty, and what I'd like to do is stick feathers in circles. But we're very fortunate in that it still exists. Quite a unique and special thing to see. In the octagon. So this shows paintwork which was Bailey in the octagon. It's based on a real, proper, authentic 1790s ski. Before we do any work like this, we do things like paint analysis, where we get somebody in who does scrapes and sees that the layers of paint. So we're not just making this up. The next slide here shows the bottom left. There is an original panel of the original 1790s painting, which we've left and then we painted around it. So the octagon was hand painted by a group of folks who came in to do this, which was quite extraordinary, really. And so it's now completely painted with chevrons, which is a very unusual paint layer, but it's all authentic. So yeah, that's how we show it. Okay, so hopefully you will know that the one moment, let's take my jump off. Okay, that's all. So hopefully you will know that we have a rare and special shell gallery. We have I've got this photograph so you can see that the shell gallery sits at the top of the octagon in the centre of the house. It's about 10 metres up the floor. It's really delicate. It's rare. We don't know of any others in the world which have been situated at the top of the building. Usually they are under the ground or in some caves and in gardens. We've been talking about conserving this properly for at least 25 years or so, because it's just such an unusual and multifaceted project. So we're very fortunate that we were able to get this done. So these are some of the problems and some of the details that make it so special. So the water coming in helped at all. Some of the items are shells that have fallen off. We've got featherwork, birds who were stuck to cardboard, and they have dropped off as well. So these photographs from 2019 before the work started. First thing we had to do was to build a false floor. across the gap so that nobody would fall down it and the workforce could work. So the balustrading was removed, and so that the whole room was opened up as a room. Pretty much, it did mean that visitors couldn't see what was going on, but it meant that the conservators could work freely. And so what you would have seen is a temporary floor, which was very peculiar to look at because you really missed out on what made the property special. So we have really gained a better understanding of the decorative schemes and how the octagon and the shell gallery fitted together. It's designed to be viewed from the ground, so we're not too concerned that visitors are no longer allowed up into the shell gallery just because they're not allowed up because it is so delicate, so special. And obviously you're up there in a very narrow walkway with a 10-meter drop to one side. So it would be very difficult logistically to get people down. So really interesting to see how they fit together, the shell gallery and the octagon. Talking about more to do with the deterioration of the shell gallery. So the red crossy bits on this are areas that had been lost. We're very lucky in that we have a huge number of bits boxes in the property. So every time anything drops off in the A La Ronde, we file it carefully in a bag, we write where we found it, and it awaits a specialist conservator to come and stick it back on again. Once we've got a huge box full, it's more worth their while rather than just waiting for one fit. So we had about 50 boxes of shells from the shell gallery, and we were fortunate that I think we've got about 3 boxes left now of things that just couldn't go back. So they've done pretty well. These are more examples of before the work went on. We have these really beautiful works on paper, which, as you can imagine, have been giving us a bit of a discussion about how we work with them because they're glued to the water behind. So you have to, if you want to conserve them properly, you have to remove them from their position and take them away, which is what has happened with this one. And actually, when we're doing this, we found some really interesting things we didn't know about. So this shell picture is similar to these ones that you see on the right. And when we took it down, it was taken apart in a specialist lab. And there's this interesting bit of paper which was behind it, and we can't work out quite why and what, and which is really irritating. And this is the only example we've got, so we haven't got the rest of the story. So I can't really quite imagine what it might have said. But it's something that we're discovering through the conservation, is all this information it didn't know about. This is just to show you how one of the bird panels was conserved. The funny things, as you can see, the top left is before conservation and the right-hand side is after conservation. So it's a stick will be stuck back. The whole panel is cleaner and flatter. And it's also been put back in place in a way that if there was an emergency or if we needed to take it off, again, we can do that without spoiling it. So we had a lovely team of conservators who came and worked on the shell gallery, sticking back thousands and thousands of shells, all in their right places, which is fantastic, or as right as they possibly could. So you really get an eye in after a bit to see how the shells work and the patterns. So this is the bird panels I showed you before as well, one of the watercolours. We had the, you see it in situ, top left, and then bottom left, we found another few bits of paper in one of our big boxes, which meant that the conservators could put this onto a new backing and we could put it back in place, which is lovely. So it's going to be fully conserved right inside. So this is a photograph after the work, and obviously there are still some things bitsy, but we haven't got them, so we're not going to put them back because that would not be true to our ethos of conservation. So it's looking a lot cleaner, a lot brighter. When you go up there, you're not scared of breathing and anything dropping off. So we're very fortunate that we think it can now survive for quite a few more years. Right, so part of our, when we've got the conservation work done, ticked off, we're thinking about how to represent the property and show off the shell gallery, but also restrict access to that delicate and rare space. So what has been created is what we call the room of discovery. So we had this, we put out a call for interpretation by artists of the shell gallery so that visitors could come and interact with something similar to the shell gallery, but so they could get an idea of perhaps what it was like originally, and how it might have felt when you were in the space. So this is the designs by Monica, who is this lady in bottom left, who's a local artist. And the room has 8 sides, like the shell gallery, and you can get up close to the shells and poke them if you wanted to. So that's fantastic, because lots of people like to do that. So it's very interesting, the patterns that she decided on. She's come across a way of making visual sounds. Opening a new vibrator metal plate, the music on with a person tone, the sand put on metal plate creates these magical shapes. It's really very clever. I had something I'd never heard of before. So she took that concept and she played the calls of birds featured in those watercolors and in the feather work. And she's created these. The top one's a parakeet, evidently, as the bottom one's an error. So she's then created that in shells, which is quite fantastic. There's more information actually on the property. It's one of those things I don't quite understand how that works, but absolutely beautiful. So that means that visitors can come and look at something that's equivalent to the shell gallery, and they can access it and get up really close to it, which is lovely, actually. We have a 360-degree web camera thing on our website as well, so that's another way of getting up really close and personal with the shell gallery itself. So really interesting, kind of different ways of exploring how to show off the property without letting people actually get up really close to delicate areas of the shell gallery itself. So we also worked with Devon Carers, who have created this fantastic quilt. So one of our team went and gave a talk about A La Ronde to the local group, and we wanted to involve the group in a sort of craft-based project, really, which is completely different to their day-to-day caring responsibilities. So, fortunately, they took time to come and create their own design in a section of our quilt, based on what they love about A La Ronde. So absolutely beautiful creations, really spoiled for choice, and a really nice opportunity to get involved with the local group. And we're going on with our partnership with them, and they are creating flower arrangements for next year in the house. So that's going to be something that's ongoing. Let's have a partnership with Exeter Road Primary School, who've been up quite a few times and done quite a lot of nature things in the grounds, and been inside storytelling, craft activities, creative writing, and just sort of being there for a place to hang out really and rush about. They don't have a playing field, I understand, at the Exeter Road Primary School. So they connect and use our fields, which is fantastic. We also have partnered with Deaf Academy, who come up and do some work experience and do some further research into things like the feather frieze. And we have some garden volunteers, and they've also been teaching us how to talk to and communicate with people who are hard of hearing. So that's been really interesting, is to get that up and running. So garden and outdoors, it's not just about the house, it's about how it sits in its environment. So we have this picture in the top right showing a path in the 1890s. And so we have been creating an accessible perimeter path. This is fantastic for families, people who are not quite so able on their ends. And we have been creating these lovely benches, which are all individually designed and made, which sit around that. So you can sit on a bench, look at the beautiful view, which is pretty much what A La Ronde is about, really. So Mary Carpenter's will in the 1840s mentions an ornamental seats. So we've sort of gone with that a bit and sort of run with it. And that's why we have these very unusual individual seats around. We also have a fantastic garden volunteer team who work with our head gardener to create sort of new areas. And it's been a bit of a field as the estate, so up to now. But our head gardener and the volunteers worked really hard to create shrubberies, really, in the corners of the meadows, sort of highlight managed areas around the grounds, create interest, place to pause, place to sit and admire views and reflect. So that's quite impressive, really, and obviously ongoing work. So we have this thing called growing support in the National Trust. At A La Ronde, it's all about really fundraising and getting people to visit and just being involved with the property. So you probably know we have a lovely second-hand bookshop. We don't have a gift shop at the moment, but we do have second-hand books. So if you've got any that you'd like to donate, we'll always take it. And we have a lovely group of volunteers who make things to send in the shop. So we have bee hotels, we have various slate things, and we have a group of knitters who mostly make hedgehogs, which is fantastic. But they're really good sellers. And I don't know how many we sold last year, but it must have been quite a few hundred. And so there are opportunities for volunteers to get involved, not just with chatting to visitors in the house, but also from home, checking jigsaws, knitting, and spreading word about how fabulous A La Ronde is. Oh yeah, and I have some volunteering leave if anybody would like to join. So that brings me to a conclusion, really. Thank you for listening. If you want to come and visit, we open on the 4th of March, which is about 8 weeks' time on a Tuesday, and then open throughout the whole summer season until the end of October. We don't open on the Mondays, but we're open every other day. So there's plenty of opportunity to come up and visit us.
So you're experts in gluing things?
Yes.
So the whole base is held together with glue?
Yes.
You get it from Screwfix, but special glue. Okay, so that's not an issue. I was looking for some help. I've got something I need to stick in the wall. Okay, any questions? Must be some questions.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting hearing about all the wonderful improvements. But one thing that we local people really miss is that lovely cafe that we use because it's like these first months just for the creatives and bring all the people that came to stay with us. It was a must. It was always part of our program. You know, I'm afraid I missed that terribly. Thank you very
Oh, so story of cat.
Okay. I'm very aware of how fabulous the cafe once was. It very successful, wonderful stuff that was sold. But unfortunately, after COVID, the National Trust had lost and wasn't generating enough funds to keep up with both the conservation of the properties and the running of the cafe in the smallest of the properties. Because we were considered as a small property, it meant that the important bit was to look after the property itself. So the funds that we had to go towards conservation of the property, because that is the core reason why the National Trust exists. So the with the thought that after COVID, the numbers of visitors would increase very, very gradually, which they have been doing, it wouldn't be financially viable to keep the cafe at that point. So it was taken from us. And I do agree that, yes, it is really, it was really fabulous. But I suppose A La Ronde is more than just a cafe. I know it's a really good opportunity to come up and a really good excuse to come and just enjoy it. And that's why we've tried to expand a bit more with different kind of other ways of, it's not just about the house, but it's about different ways of exploring the house.
So that was one of the main fundraisers.
Yes and no. It never was at a loss, was the amount of money that came in. But somebody in the background in the National Trust HQ would have done some special numbers, I'm sure, with the finance as to how that will have worked. I believe that there are plans over the next few years to have something similar, well, not quite similar, but have a new cafe up at A La Ronde, and have some kind of link with the Holston Farm, which obviously is part of the National Trust as well. So there are plans. We've got a new general manager who looks after both properties, and I know that he's keen to exploit the tea and the scoddles opportunities that there might be. At the moment, we have obviously our trailer in the car park, which I know isn't quite the same, but there is still opportunity for tea and scones. But I do agree that we were all very sad on the property as well, because obviously we've lost a lot of our friends who've had to go somewhere else, and a huge number of people lost their jobs as a result of COVID. Before COVID, we had maybe 30 people working there. In the years after COVID, we had 9, of which 2 were full time. So it's, and we're just starting to build that up again. So yes, I do know how important a cup of tea has gone up. But yeah, it's something that you would like more information about. I'm sure that I can pass your comments to somebody who's crunched the numbers.
Hello there. Just following on the ask your previous question is, I think the cafe encourages people to go. We haven't been for a long time, although we live locally, because the cafe's not there, so we get the money not only to the tills for the cafe, but for a lot. So
I completely agree. Yes. And your opportunity is to come up, boss, have a look at it. It's like now. I would say that I'm actually in the House and Collections department, so I have no number crunching abilities, and cannot influence what the National Trust take. But yeah, I mean, this is the kind of conversation that we do keep having, and it's sort of going out in circles at the moment. But it could be in very shortly that something will be brought into fruition.
All right. So Christine first.
Okay, thank you. Can you tell us anything about the pedestrian access to A La Ronde? Because with the Dinan Way extension, I know that A La Ronde had put in an application to have perhaps one-way access to A La Ronde. One of the difficulties is along Summer Lane is that it is used as a rat run, which is a great shame. And I know personally from having walked up there during the lockdown that it was still used as a rat run. And the only time I've managed to walk up there with practically no visitors or pedestrians or cars using it was when it was completely closed. But even with the no-through road, there's more vehicles going through it than can possibly live along there. So can you tell us where that has got?
Yeah, well, I shall do my best for this. We have, as you know, the Dinan Way extension, which goes parallel to Summer Lane. That will mean that all traffic, fingers crossed, that used to use Summer Lane as a rat run will use that new road. We are talking to the district council, I think, at the moment about whether there'll be bollards halfway up Summer Lane so that visitors to A La Ronde will only be able to get in from Exeter Road, and visitors to Point in View will only be able to get in from the other end. But that is under discussion at the moment, so it will be pretty much only access for properties because it won't be a through road. We also are looking with our new general manager, he's got so many ideas, is to create a bit of a better link from the multi-purpose walking path that goes along the estuary and then goes up to A La Ronde. So it could be that there will be a sort of back entrance across the estate through the field rather than coming in by Summer Lane, because we have a gateway that goes onto Little Mead Lane, I think. So it could be that that could be opened up as an alternative for pedestrians coming from the town, which would link really nicely into the Holsmead farm and that multi-user path. But that's sort of all up in the air at the moment because we're not quite sure because it's all very new to us, is this new road.
Well, not that one, because the entrance from it Mead Lane sounds like a superb idea. It makes it excellent. Yeah, beyond the Summer Lane. Yes, it's much.
And there's a really nice link there with the town as well. So it's much easier to get to the property from the town. So I think that's what's hoped for. We shall see.
That sounds
It does sound like a really good idea, yeah. And hopefully that's like fresh.
Okay, someone over here. Yep.
I don't know what's okay. When our children were young, we brought them to A La Ronde, and I remember them going up into the show gallery.
Am I dreaming that they went up ladders? I was looking hard at your side, so I couldn't see. Were there ladders, or are there ladders? Could you still? Could I go and see how my little boys scrambled up?
Yeah, I'm maybe sure. I'm not sure what that lever is.
The access to the shell gallery is up a very steep little staircase.
Sorry, I know it's but out of it.
Now, I'm sure that quite a few of you will never going up there. If you look on our website, if you're that way inclined, there is a video which shows how you walk up to the shell gallery, which is quite interesting.
But it's a very subtle place. You can still see the staircase. I just couldn't see it on any of the sounds as it turned.
No, it's so difficult to photograph. But yeah, that's how you get to it. How the parliaments would have got up there as well. But I don't think any ladders. But they are one of those steep stairs.
One more.
You talk about pedestrian access. What about vehicle access?
Vehicle access to the property will be on Southern Lane still. But we'll have bollards halfway up Summer Lane so that visitors can only come in and go out again down to Exeter Road and back. But we're not quite sure. No, I won't.
Okay, one more.
A long time ago, more than 50, probably 60 years ago, one would be shown around the property by Mrs. Julie Perkins. I would ask it after the Arkansas to show you, really love me. But she took great delight in this enormous, what she called rent table, with every day.
Yes, yeah.
And the change 100, it's still there.
Yes, the red table is still there and still in place where she put it. And it still rotates, but it's still really for draws for children. Yeah, just have a look because it's quite a fantastic thing. But yes, we still got that in situ. Good.
Thank you very much. Yep. Thank you very much. That was absolutely great. And thank you very much for attending. Some great questions there. You're still going to hang around for it? Yeah. So if you've got any more questions, please come and ask us. The coffee is still available next door. And the views are the same as they were.